Right?
Yes.
Yeah, this is nice.
Except for the fact that we ran out of chairs, so we're just gonna stand
We didn't run out of chairs. There's still plenty. Like I can see where a butt would fit there.
No,
right
I'm not
there,
sitting
right
next
there,
to
right
anything.
there.
The ground's always an option.
So yeah, there's definitely spots available. But if you don't want to sit down, that's okay too.
There's one by Asher.
Can I go
Indiana's
just
fun.
belly flop in the poison ivy?
No.
Can we eat grass?
All right, guys.
No.
So we are going to continue in our series on Familia. So
Where's
let
the
me
big
see if
screen that says Familia?
I can
Where's the
get.
internet?
It's right there. Just imagine it's right there.
Yeah, it's right there. It's just in the trees.
All right, so actually what we're going to do, the seats that you're sitting in don't even matter right now because in order to start this series off, I need to take a vote and I want to see, I've got, like 5 questions, I think, 5 or 6 questions here. And so what we're going to do, everybody's just going to line up right here in the middle, okay? Everybody just get right here in the middle. And then I'm going to have you pick a side as to which side that you agree with, okay? So we're talking about family or familia. So how often do we feel like our families fight about things? Pretty regularly, right? Because they're families, closest to each other like we've talked about before. And so sometimes when we try to pick what we want, like if somebody says, let's say mom says, okay, we're going to go out to eat today. What do you guys want? Can anybody in the family all agree upon the same thing ever?
No.
Okay, like one person said yes, everybody else said no. Yeah. If I give my kids an option in the house, there's no way that we're going to land on the same thing.
Unless Cabo's an option.
After
Unless
each
if
one
it's
of these,
murder
I
or
want you to
something.
pick either this side that you agree on or this side. Now, don't pay attention to what everybody else is picking. Just focus on what you think, okay? So, if you were given the option for a home-cooked meal or takeout, which would you rather go with? Home-cooked meal or takeout?
It depends on the home cooked
Which
meal.
one is home cooked meal? Which one is takeout? I say takeout. I think who doesn't with home
It's your mom's home-cooked meal, it's your grandma's home-cooked meal.
I go over here because I get to play video games.
All right, so most of us are going with the home-cooked meal. Solid
Ramen
choice.
noodles.
Solid choice. Okay, back in the middle, back in the middle.
That's such a good meal. No, it isn't. You don't get ramen at restaurants.
This one's going to be easy, Weston, doing it. Get down.
You're not 5 feet deep.
Would you rather go on a family road trip or a family cruise?
Road.
Family road trip.
I hate chips.
I don't like the water.
So,
Please just let you jump in
Cooler
it.
because they have pools, slides, all that. All
I can jump off the edge of the
I really hate the idea of spending a lot of time in the water, like way out in the water. Plus, I've seen how Titanic worked out. Didn't work out too well for them. So, yeah, I don't know which one I would rather do. That's for sure. Oh, shoot, my thing just went away. I had it all pulled up because I didn't need the internet. My screen just went away. Like, lost the internet, which I don't need.
Josh, touch it.
You gotta be kidding me. My internet's not even working on my phone.
Next question. More questions. You know what?
Help with the building of this?
Right now, fall off. Wait, Jay, you want to go on a cruise, Jay?
A lot higher. No, it's not popping up on my iPad at all. I'm gonna have to do it on my. I'm gonna switch sides. Colson did it like 3 years ago, I think. So.
Didn't you say something about 6 questions?
Yeah,
The
but
second question.
my internet went away.
Oh.
Hey, John.
Hang on.
I have a
If
question.
only
Hang on.
we had a fiber.
He has internet? Man. You have signal on the internet.
Is Spotify working?
The question is, the bird is flying over your head. Who is who?
What do you want to do?
Yeah, from Among Us is good. Well, Among Us is
A triangle. Actually, you want to who is wearing it?
No, Winston.
No.
Winston.
I've seen that Minecraft.
Among Us is a being that's existed longer before time.
We haven't had a month. Far too long.
Hey, it's him. He's Among Us.
Oh, Among Us YouTube.
Josh, we got a problem.
What?
People have a stick.
Put the stick down.
Eli, put the stick up. Put the stick up. Guys,
Eli's Among
let go of the
Us.
stick.
Threatening lies.
That's it.
We have to keep them. Please. That was fun.
Among Us is everywhere. It's even before time.
Yeah. I keep blowing the
Clorox. You have to collect every animal, every single one.
Yeah.
I beat all the masters. I am so. Oh, I love that. I'm so good at it. I even did that pain 5 times in one day. 5 times in one day.
Guys, bring the dodgeballs over here. Drew,
They've got weapons.
Because you're always running away.
They're threatening lies. How are we supposed to deal with that?
Yeah, I lied on one time.
all right, guys. Connor, let me see that dodgeball.
Josh got it. Position.
All right, back to it. Now I got the internet again. All right, back in the middle. Back in the middle.
You got the whipping back. Okay, that's not mine.
I see that. I'm seeing.
Would you rather watch a movie at home or a movie at the theater? A movie at home or the movie at the theater?
At home you can lie down.
It's either listening to the baby cry in the theater or doing
I think that's what most people think.
Or have
Theater, you can
All right, back in the middle. Back in the middle. Never do a chore ever again. Never do a chore ever again. Or get paid every time a sibling has to do a chore.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was easy.
Yeah, much easier. Much easier.
All right.
So I'm never going to get paid.
Would you rather always pick what's on TV or always pick what's for dinner?
Oh, well, we
Always pick what's on TV or always pick what's on. Nobody cares what's on TV. Yeah, well, okay, so that means like on your phone, on your tablet, everything. All right, everybody have a seat. Everybody have a seat. Everybody sit down.
You said on the old television.
And while you guys are sitting down, I want you to think about this. What's the most unimportant thing that your family ever thought about? What is the most unimportant thing that was like, man, this was ridiculous that our family even got into an argument about this because it was so dumb. Eli, what was it?
The brand of chocolate we were going to buy for Halloween.
The brand of chocolate? Okay.
That's an important conversation.
Yeah, that's pretty important right there.
Yeah, I mean, if it's the really cheap stuff. Beckett, what was yours?
For me, it's not important because I don't really like sweets.
Beckett.
That thing talking about if they should have Corbin or not.
And you were part of that conversation? just by like you were like 5 minutes late for that one. Isaac, what were you gonna say?
The most awkward argument was probably when. Oh my gosh.
All right, ladies. What's the?
I
What
had
you
the
got?
best one.
Like what we were going to like have for lunch.
What you got? Yeah, I mean, like sometimes these things are really, really dumb. What do you got, Weston?
All right. So we argued about one time if Spencer is allowed to make bodily humor joke at the
dining table.
Okay, yeah, certain jokes. I got it. Yep. Okay. Well, I'm going to be reading off my phone today since my iPad just gave up on life, which is what I'm going to do too here if I lose my phone. So, it can be really hard. It can be really difficult as a family. Guys, hey, Bryson, focus up here, okay? All right. Okay, put the sticks down, Connor. Put the stick down. Nobody should have sticks or anything like that, okay? When we fight with our families, understanding each other is probably the most difficult part of the process. Because you see things one way, your siblings probably see things another way, and then your parents are probably like, man, could y'all just get this figured out? Could y'all just get this worked out? This doesn't happen in the Brenneman house, right? No, nobody ever argues. Like, between you two, nobody ever argues, right? Josh, you look like you just saw an alien or something like that. You look like you just joined the conversation while your sister's like, oh no, we never fight. Do you fight with your sisters? Do you intentionally try to cause pain and trauma on your sisters? Sometimes, yes, that's fair. How many of you as a sibling is like, sometimes I just wake up and I don't choose to, but like, man, I just want to make my siblings' life the worst sometimes. Yeah. Yes. Now think about what that does. Now instantly I want you to go back and think of where your parents are at in this conversation.
They aren't in it at all.
What are your parents doing in this situation? Are they hiding?
Sleeping.
Did they leave to go on a vacation and choose to leave you at home
Yes.
because of the way that you guys were acting? Yeah, definitely.
Siding with Spencer.
So, okay, in this series, we're talking about Familia, which Familia, like I mentioned in week 1, is German for family. Okay.
It's Spanish.
I thought it was French.
It's not French. It's
Okay.
Spanish.
Does anybody know how to say family in any other languages other than English and
Yes.
Spanish?
Yes.
What?
French.
What is it?
Je m'appelle Isaac. Comment t'appelles-tu? My name is Isaac. What is your name?
That's not what we said. We said, how do you say family in another language? What language?
Familia.
Swedish.
What is it?
God morgon
That means family?
means good morning.
Come on, guys. Come on. All right, so do you guys know how many languages there are in the world?
Yeah, if you didn't Google Translate, probably I can't find one I know how to pronounce.
233 languages? You're really close. Not at all. But who else? Who else wants to guess?
138.
Thousands.
69,696.
6,940.
How many you guess?
4,444.
How many?
4,567.
Less than 10,000.
420.
7,000. 7,000 languages that are spoken today. So that means that there's probably around 7,000 different ways just to be able to say family on there. And so when we're fighting with our families, go ahead and put your hand down. It can seem impossible to understand each other. And that's what I want to talk about specifically today, because I have been in these situations as a sibling with my sister. I've done it in my own household with my family, with my kids and my wife, where, man, does anybody ever feel the need sometimes to just be right? Like, man, listen, no matter what anybody else is saying, I'm the one that's got my perspective and I'm the one that is the most right on here. Now, come on, y'all. If you don't have your hand up, then you're just lying to yourself, because we've all done this. We get into our certain perspective and we're like, man, this is the right answer. I don't care what Corbin says. I don't care what my sister says. I don't care. What's that?
Regular.
That's regular, yeah. So every family fights. You ever felt like you ever go over to a friend's house and it's like, man, they've got the most perfect family life and that, like, they never argue? You ever been over to a friend's house like that and you're like, man, their family, like, does anybody ever raise your hand if you ever been in a family, like stay at a friend's house or something, and you thought that their family was so perfect that they would never get into a
It
fight?
all depends. There's
Only,
sister
so like
tried to
maybe
choke out
5
my
of us have
friend's
raised their hands. Well, let me make sure that I clear this out. Even those families that you thought were like the perfect ones and would never fight about anything, they do. They do, because see, sometimes, now maybe their fights don't get physical. Maybe sometimes our fights get physical. I got boys in my house. I got 3 boys, and so sometimes it gets a little bit physical when the fights happen. Not always, but sometimes. Sometimes the fights just get to be where, like, we just become mean. And we say things that we know are going to hurt the other person's feelings. Sometimes we do things that are a little passive-aggressive, right? Does anybody know what passive-aggressive means?
Yes.
Somebody tell me what passive-aggressive means. Give it to me in student words.
It means being aggressive, but you're trying to turn it off. So it means you're being mean, but you're trying to pass it off as you're not trying to be mean.
Yeah. So it's like you say smart things that like still really irritate the person. What were you going to say, Jake? Did you look up the translation? What is it?
Google. It allows a person to express anger and related emotions without directly communicating these feelings.
And so, like, some of us are really good at doing this, and it doesn't mean that you're good at arguing or fighting or, like, saying anything. It just means that, like, you're just doing it a little discreetly, but everybody still is reading between the lines. So, how about this? How many of you, your idea of apologizing is just to keep your distance for, like, a certain point of time until, like, people are just kind of done with the whole argument, and so you just jump right back in to like living a normal life. Okay, Zan, yeah, Connor, yeah. Some of us do this too. Where it's like, you know what, I don't feel, again, we're still in that mindset where like, I was the one that was right. And so I don't feel like I'm the one that should have to apologize because I was the one that was right. Yeah, sometimes we get like that. Sometimes this is the mentality that we have. Those ones, though, can be the worst when we don't settle our differences, whether it was with our siblings or whatnot, because we've all seen roadkill on the side of the road before, right? Yep. We've all seen roadkill. And man, on a hot summer day like we're going to have this next week, what happens to roadkill after it's been sitting for like a week? It gets even more rotten. It stinks even worse. And when we don't resolve our arguments, guys, hey, sometimes that can be even worse than the original argument that we had because we didn't settle the differences. We just kind of let it go. And if we never talked it out, if we never figured out, okay, what started the argument, what made you mad, what made me mad, if we never walk through these things, then the likelihood is we're going to walk back into one of those arguments again soon, someday. And is it going to be even worse because now our feelings are hurt even more because we just did this a week ago and we never got reconciliation. We never got the situation dealt with. So every single family has its own set of like unique, unhealthy habits, more than likely. All of us in this outdoor sanctuary have that. And the New Testament of the Bible, that's the newest part when Jesus came to earth. It's full of letters from early church followers and leaders who were all part of the family of God. And so Paul starts telling people, hey, this is how, when you deal with conflict, this is how you're going to have to deal with it. And so I'm going to look these up here real quick because I didn't know I was going to be without the internet out here. Okay, so in Ephesians, which for 100, actually I'm going to feel generous, 200 million bonus points that are worth absolutely no monetary value whatsoever, okay? Who knows who Paul was writing to in the church of Ephesians? Corbin. Eli was like, I'm not even going to give Corbin a chance to be able to say this all on his own. Yeah, the church of Ephesus. And so in Ephesians 4, verses 31 through chapter 5, verse 2, it says, listen, this is important, guys. This is what Paul is telling us. This is going to enrich our lives. This is going to make things better. Get rid of bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior. Now, I want you to think about real quick the arguments that you've been in with your siblings, maybe with your parents, okay? Whatever this falls under the context of family. I want you to think about the times where you've been bitter towards your family, or maybe you raged just a little bit, anger for sure, harsh words, probably, or slander. What does slander mean? What does slander mean? Yeah, what's slander mean? Yeah, like I'm gonna call you a bad name specifically, like a butt face. Nobody says that, but like
My cousin will. My little cousin, no joke, yesterday, I was building something and he was getting mad at me because I didn't want to play Nerf guns with him, so he said, "You butt face."
So instead, we've all been in these situations where we said some things out of bitterness, rage, anger, and instead, Paul says, instead be kind to each other, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you. And so like, it's okay. How many of you are thinking like, all right, I understand that part. Like, yeah, I shouldn't have anger. I shouldn't have rage. I shouldn't do these things. But like, Paul didn't know what it was like to live with my family. Anybody feel like that when they read this? Like, Paul didn't know what it was like to be in my family, so maybe he doesn't get it. Well, he gives us a little bit of an idea of what to turn to. He says, imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you're his dear children. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. He loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. So again, Paul's saying, listen, how many of you feel so much better about your life when you're full of bitterness, when you're full of rage, when you're full of anger? Like, how many of you are like, this is my best life when I'm feeling those emotions? None of us do. None of us really believe that. Instead, when we feel really loved, when we feel joy, when we feel happiness, we feel peace, and therefore that is our most comfortable time when we are experiencing those emotions. And so Paul is telling us, look, God is giving you the directive to sit there and say, you're called to love. You're called to be kind. You're called especially to your family, which it's understandable why we want to be like, we're the most comfortable with our family. So if we all just started like flinging insults at each other and acting like how we do it at our families with this group right here, it would get super awkward real quick, right? Because like some of us know each other. Like I'm pretty convinced like Eli and Corbin, while they're taking selfies right now of each other, like they know each other pretty well. But I bet that they haven't had the same kind of arguments with each other like they've had with their family members. And so it's like, okay, we reach a certain level of comfort, but is our family the one that deserves like the worst of our anger, the worst of our rage? Or should we be like the most kind because they share the same blood as us? And really, what's the circumstance? The thing that matters the most here is, why do we get into arguments in the first place? It's because we don't understand each other sometimes. It's because, especially when it comes to our siblings, and especially if you're the older one, like you look at your younger siblings and it's like, man, you stupid. Why would you act like that? You dumb.
You're not necessarily wrong,
You're stupid.
But to be fair, as the younger siblings, sometimes you look up at your older siblings and it's like, bro, you dumb. You should know better than this. You're older. And so there's a matter of like, we have a lack of understanding. We have a lack of understanding. And so there's a really important idea that Paul communicates here. The reason he tells us to do these things is because God has already done this through Jesus. So first of all, we can sit there and say, Jesus did this, and so we have the capability of doing this. And Paul tells us mainly the reason here is to forgive each other. How many of you struggle with forgiving people? Be honest. Be honest. Yeah, forgiving people can be really difficult. Maybe the reasons why forgiveness can be difficult for you is because you once made a huge mistake and are really hurt that a family member maybe doesn't trust you like they used to. Or maybe like you messed up so bad that you think that even though that your family member said that they forgave you, you're like, but they've just been acting different towards me ever since. There's a lot of different reasons why in our families forgiveness can be really, really difficult. But here's the things to remember. When it comes to arguments, and you ever had your sibling just be mad at you for no reason at the beginning of the day? Like they just woke up grumpy? You ever been that sibling?
Yeah.
Yes.
So here's the steps when it comes to your family fights. What I need you to unpack the argument in your head real quick when you're going through it and say, is this really about me? Is my family member, are they mad about me? Or is there something else that they're upset about? So trying to determine what it is that you or your family member is actually upset about is really important. Sorry, this is really weird doing this on my phone here. Paul said that we should forgive each other because God has forgiven us, so we should be able to do the same thing. Well, Paul talks about this more in another letter in Colossians, which who was the Colossians written to?
Corbin.
Church.
Yeah, Corbin.
Corbin.
Colossian church.
Corbin.
Jake knows.
I thought.
Jake remembers. You know, the church that Paul was writing to, and it's the book of Colossians, but he was writing to the people of
Colossians?
what is it? The Colossians, otherwise known as the church of
Colossians?
Jake's brain.
Colossia. You were really close. Okay, so Paul says, this includes you who were once far away from God. You were his enemies, separated from him by your evil thoughts and actions. Yet now he has reconciled you to himself through the death of Christ in his physical body. As a result, he has brought you into his own presence, and you are holy and blameless as you stand before him without a single fault. Christ died for our sins. Yeah, he bought our salvation through the death of his blood. And so reconciliation, what does reconciliation mean? What does it mean to reconcile with someone, Corbin?
Kind of fix your argument or forgive them.
Yeah. It's really important here to understand the difference of forgiveness and reconciliation. Reconciliation says, man, Asher, forgiveness means, man, you messed up. And you know what? I forgive you. Like Corbin said, to reconcile with somebody means, you know what? We're actually going to talk out what happened. And then whoever was in the wrong, they need to ask for forgiveness. And whoever was wronged, hopefully, maybe not right there on the spot. It depends on the severity of the argument. But maybe they should probably forgive the other person. Because if we don't give forgiveness, then we hang on to that stuff and it gets even worse. So think about when you're going to be in these arguments with your family. It could be later on today. Hopefully not, because it's Father's Day. So first of all, like we said at the beginning, treat your dad like kings today, right? Treat your dads like
Josh,
kings.
what if your dad went out to get milk a long time ago before you were born and never came back?
Well, then that milk is going to be the best milk ever, okay?
What if it's spoiled?
So take whatever you have going on. It could be later this week. It could be next week. But we know for a fact we're going to get into some more arguments with our friends, with our families. Understand, go to your sibling and be like, I know it's going to be weird and awkward at first, guys. But if you go to them and you're like, maybe not right in the heat of the argument, but maybe you walk away for a couple minutes and you come back to them and you say, hey, what's up? What's going on? What are you upset about today? Drew, what is it that you're so angry about? You know, I can see Brooklyn, you coming to him and saying like, Drew, what the heck's wrong with you today? The grass is green,
not blue.
Yeah, the grass is green,
So
not black.
go to them and just try to figure out what the underlying issue is. Is this really about you or is it about something else? Because God has called us to live a life full of love within our families. And so it actually hurts him when he sees us quarreling and when he understands that we're families and that we're not going to get along all the time. But we don't have to be families that get into terrible fights that just ruin the rest of the day or a couple hours or whatever. That's not what we've been called to do. So we're going to pray right now. I want to pray over us. And I just want you to think about your own family life, your own family situation, and what you can do within your family to help heal past hurts, current hurts, or future fights that might be waiting for you, because we understand that this is going to happen. Father, Lord, we thank you so much for your words of wisdom that you spoke, not only from your son Jesus, but also, Lord, how you've spoken to Paul to give his church help, because Paul saw churches that were struggling with fighting and bitterness and anger. And so, Lord, specifically, we're talking about today how it deals with our families. And God, we understand what it means to be like everything's going great, and then all of a sudden a little fight breaks out between one or two of us in the family, and then the whole family's at odds. God, that hurts you. And it hurts us if we're being honest. As we talked about this morning, we would much rather be happy and joyful and loving, because those all bring peace to us. And so, God, may we be ambassadors that bring peace into our families. May we help bring joy. When we understand that one of our siblings is having a bad day, or maybe mom or dad is just really struggling and that their tempers are a little bit shorter than normal, that we go to them and say, hey, what's going on? Is there anything that I can do to help? Allow us to change and cultivate love into our families, God, because that's what your son did. And we're so thankful for the example that he gave to us. Lord, allow us to have a great Father's Day, and regardless of what dads we may have involved in our lives, may they be honored, and may we lift them up today. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Josh, are we going outside today?
No, we can't go outside. So I got two different games that we can look at playing. And so I'm going to just pick whoever. So line up in the middle, and whoever picks the most, then that's what we're going to do. So if you line up on this side of the room, we're going to do capture the flag. If you line up on this side, we're going to do mat ball. Capture the flag or mat ball. It's like kickball.
Okay, I'm going over here.
We're doing mat ball.
I don't know what.